Hello, everyone, and welcome to Shift Left, Build It Right. My name is Andrew Duckett, and I lead the developer experience practice at Discover. I'm joined today by Javier Alvarez, one of the engineers leading the delivery of Golden Paths. Now, to start things off, I'll set the stage with our journey and one of the problems we face in our developer experience. And then I'll hand things over to Javier to talk about what we're doing with Golden Paths and how we believe they help. He'll cover some of the practices we put in place so that a small team can scale to meet the demands of hundreds of engineering teams, and wrap up with the impact we think this has had so far, what we think is next, and some takeaways. Well, before we do that, I wanted to take a minute and talk about what goes on in a developer's mind every day. In the past, before we began our cloud journey, many of these decisions were a little bit easier. And while we may not have loved it, we leaned on technology stacks like Java EE to guide us. Development teams handed many of these non-functional concerns and planning to operations and infrastructure teams. Now, don't get me wrong. We believe the shift to self-sufficient autonomous teams empowered by things like cloud platforms and self-service is valuable. One of the things we don't often talk about is the amount of cognitive load this now places on individual teams. So what do? They each build little knowledge bases to make themselves more effective. Teams created their own documentation, patterns, practices, and little silos, sometimes in GitHub wikis, SharePoint, Confluence, take your pick. And while the information was good, it was difficult to find and rarely consistent. I imagine some of this sounds familiar, right? So we created a place where developers could share knowledge through original content created by Discover subject matter experts. We've got documentation, code patterns, tutorials, and other resources for upskilling, reskilling, and continued learning. We call this place the Discover Technology Academy. Finally, all of the resources and information is in one place. And this is a huge step for us. But the problem we now face is putting the pieces all together. So I'm going to hand it over to Javier and talk about how we think Golden Paths can help.
My name is Javier Alvarez, and I am a principal application engineer working in the Golden Paths team. As the platform evolved, so did the number of contributions as well as the different opinions about building things at Discover. Having many contributions is great, but having too many options and different opinions about how to build something could be overwhelming and not very efficient. Although this presented a challenge, it also offered an opportunity to reduce the cognitive load of having too many options and help developers in their journey of creating amazing software. Hence, we thought that something like Golden Paths could help. But what is a Golden Path? As stated by Spotify, a Golden Path is a step by step tutorial that walks you through the opinionated and supported way to build something. At Discover, our golden paths are the source of truth to help developers accomplish a specific engineering task. These paths should be to create something, such as an API, a React web app, or a backend component. It could be anything that I wanted to create, and so we think of these as higher order workflows consisting of a collection of step by step tutorials that we stitch together to create comprehensive developer journeys that we call golden paths. Golden paths can help us in the following ways. They can simplify getting started to minimize the cognitive load, so we can stop reinventing the wheel and let developers focus on higher objectives. They can turn rumor into recommended, so we can stop rumor driven development, where the only way to find out how to do something is to ask your colleague. They can also help to reduce fragmentation and inconsistencies by making sure that the tools and services on the path are aligned with the organizational standards and best practices. Our strategy for creating golden paths is guided by the open source principle of trust, transparency, and collaboration. We need the community of developers at Discover to support and participate in the creation of golden paths. So we lead with transparency. Without transparency, it is really hard to grow a community. So we work to provide meaningful context about where we are in the process, how we got here, and where we are going. Having a consistent golden path that provides the information and materials necessary for teams to do their best work enables these teams to collaborate and build upon each other's ideas and discoveries. So we can make more effective decisions and understand how decisions affect us, which can lead to better paths. As part of building this developer community, we want to empower developers to help themselves and participate. This starts by following golden paths to complete tasks, realizing what doesn't work, and submitting a fix in the process. We want our golden paths to be supported by a consensus of members in the community, where we foster productive dialogue about the best way or tools to complete a task. The developer journeys at Discover do involve many different products, and each product team has created their own documentation and standards on their product pages, which they maintain. However, we recognize the need of a single source of truth for developer journeys. The challenge was that Golden Paths team cannot be experts on every area and keep all these paths current and valid. To solve this, we have developed a contribution model that provides a framework for distributing the responsibility that comes with the lifecycle of Golden Paths. But to implement our contribution model successfully, we needed buy-in from our leadership team and sufficient level of technical expertise and experience. And despite these challenges, we were able to secure sponsorship for our Golden Paths team. And through active collaboration with the community, we are driving the evolution of our product. An example of this model could be around teams' responsibilities. So you could say that service provider teams, which are the experts in an area, will be responsible for their individual steps for their products, whereas Golden Path team would be responsible for the overall experience of the paths and any gaps in the documentation. Golden Paths team will also evaluate and archive Golden Paths that are outdated based on technology strategy, product direction, and community needs. And for critical services such as secret storage or API management, it is important that the information is kept up to date by the service provider teams. The contribution model provides clear boundaries of where the responsibility lies within the stakeholders, and it defines the information architecture for golden paths that enables our product to scale as other teams start to collaborate and add new capabilities. So, as with any other initiative, we wanted to assess the impact of Golden Paths and make sure that the outcome is valuable to our customers. Before Golden Paths were implemented, an engineer looking to build new things at Discover would need to visit several product pages that had different standards, processes, and forms to be submitted. Then they would ask a colleague how to submit those forms, and if any form was submitted incorrectly, it would cause delays on the process. We have already launched 5 golden paths, and we have estimated that an engineer can save 10 hours per component by using the golden paths, as they provide context and detailed information on how to build specific things. Now, you could scale this calculation to a company with 500 engineers. You could multiply the savings per component by the number of components each engineer creates in a year, and then multiply that by the number of engineers in the company. For example, if an engineer creates 10 components in a year, the company will create 5,000 components in a year, and each component will require 10 fewer hours of work. Hence, 5,000 components multiplied by 10 hours saved per component equals to 50,000 hours saved per year. And to ensure that our teams are equipped with the knowledge and skills to make the most out of these paths, we're developing a learning module around golden paths that will be integrated into Discover's product team's sprints. So, what's next in our journey? Now that we're working to capture the truth of how the process works, our next stops in our journey are simplification. We want to identify opportunities to automate and streamline our processes. We want to focus on self service through the scaffolding of apps, services, and ready to use templates that contains embedded patterns and policies. We want to reduce the time to hello world to just few clicks so we can let engineers focus on delivering features. To summarize, our takeaways are: reuse and don't reinvent. Use proven solutions as a foundation for new developer journeys. Move towards open models of working. This allows teams to collaborate more effectively towards a shared goal and develop shared expertise, which can lead to long term sustainability of the paths and better collaboration. Leverage the community. Prioritize the needs of the developer community to initiate new developer journeys and capabilities, but ensure that these journeys are aligned with the technology strategy. And finally, start somewhere. Improvement doesn't have to be an all or nothing approach. Starting somewhere, even with the small changes, can lead to big improvements over time. I hope that our experience in this journey inspires others to embrace the power of collaboration through innovative platforms. Thank you for listening, and you can read more about Discover Technology at technology.discover.com.